That's great. You're a lifesaver. Right, no problem. I'll be there first thing and should be done around 5. Perfect. See you then. That was a buddy of mine. I need to use his trailer to take the boat down to the lake. I've actually been thinking of getting a trailer of my own, but I don't really need one too often, so I thought it better to just borrow one. I borrow stuff from friends and family all the time. Leaf blowers, a step ladder, a northernized spring coat. Borrowing stuff is a great way to get things done, but when it comes to financial borrowing, things can be a bit tricky if you don't plan things out the right way. Personal loans, credit cards, lines of credit, there are a ton of options when it comes to borrowing, and having them can be a big help, not only for getting the stuff you need, but also making sure your credit score stays in tip-top shape. But let's face it, a lot of folks find themselves buried in debt because of how easy it is to get and use these borrowing products. My advice when it comes to borrowing? Think of it as other people's money. That's what it is, after all. And when you think of it like that, you'll be less prone to spending it for the things that you really don't need. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's take a closer look at some of the borrowing options at your disposal, along with the good and the bad of each. First up, personal loans. Folks use personal loans for all manner of things, from stuff for the house to paying off bills. In most cases, a personal loan is easy to get and unsecured. That means it's supported only by your creditworthiness, as opposed to backing it up with some sort of collateral. Most lenders require some sort of verification of your income when it comes to personal loans. That, and sometimes proof of other assets that are at least equal to what you're borrowing. While having this money available can be a good thing, the not so good is the interest rates on these loans can be high. Maybe not as high as a credit card, but definitely in the double-digit range. Speaking of credit cards, this is a borrowing product that seems to jam people up the most. That's because of a few factors. They're easy to use and accepted practically everywhere. The interest rates are the biggest pitfall. Some cards can charge as high as 20%. Having a credit card or multiple cards isn't a bad thing, though you've got to stay in control of how you use them. Paying off the balance is the best bet, as opposed to the minimum, which really means all you're doing is covering the interest. Next up is the line of credit. This is a unique borrowing product because they're revolving, which means you can use a lump sum, repay a portion of the loan, and then borrow again. It's kind of like a credit card that has a limit based on your home's equity. Some benefits of having a line of credit: in some cases, they can be tax deductible and are typically repayable over a long period of time, making them a better option for larger expenditures. Because specific amounts can be borrowed at different times, the interest rate is usually based on the prime rate. That's a good and a bad thing. Good when the prime rate is low, and bad when it starts to climb. Other things to consider with a line of credit is that because you're typically dealing with larger amounts of money, it's easy to get in over your head. Even with lower rates, you're paying interest on a much larger sum. If the rates rise, you can really get yourself into a pickle. So there are a lot of options to consider when it comes to borrowing. Like I mentioned, when you think of it as other people's money, you can help keep things under control. Another tip: think about the difference between what you want and what you need. You need clothing, food, and shelter. That new snow machine and that trip to Florida? Not so much. Hope you got something out of our little talk. There's a lot more you can learn at northernknowhow.com. Make sure to check back with us for our next video. For now, I've got a boat to pick up.